reactants and the...
End result. Gosh. Oh no. Compound. Oh, it completely left my brain. The product. Product. No, I don't deserve a jingle for that.
Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm a science teacher.
I'm Cheryl, and I slept through science.
Each episode will tackle a science question you may have learned in school, but can't quite remember or fully explain.
And I'll take the risk of asking the dumb questions so that we can all understand the science we slept through.
The bell has rung. Let's get started. Welcome to lesson 48. We are in our holiday unit. Cheryl.
Yes.
It's still Christmas.
It's still Christmas. I love this season so much. It's fantastic.
I know you do. I know you
Yeah.
do.
We love the lights,
Mm-hmm.
the music, the movies, the spirit.
Okay, that could be taken a lot of ways.
Baking. Baking's a big one. Do you have a favorite Christmas baked good?
I do, actually, but it's not one that most people would have. It's a family tradition, actually. Part of my family heritage is Swedish, and there's a recipe that has been passed down from generation to generation for at least what we call Swedish coffee bread. And we make it I don't do I crush the cardamom and I help do the things, but I don't do the part where you knead it and it gets like all sticky all over your fingers because I don't like that. But we like make bread from scratch, and it's really, 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 really good.
Cardamom and bread sounds amazing. I might need to see that recipe.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not secret.
Well, here's the thing that's interesting to me is I grew up with Swedish coffee bread. We had it around Christmas time all the time. And that was my introduction to cardamom. It's weird to me to have cardamom in savory things because to me, cardamom goes with Swedish coffee bread, which is sweet.
Yeah. I like cardamom in a latte a whole lot. It's quite delightful in a hot drink. I will tell you that. Yeah. That's so fun.
I believe it. Do you have a favorite
fun
baked good for Christmas?
Oh gosh, I like all of them a whole lot. My mom makes snowballs. They have like walnuts in them. It's kind of like a shortbready consistency and then rolled in powdered sugar. Those are very good. My sister makes you're not gonna like these, but
do they have cherry in them?
Yeah. Cherry almond cookies. But cherry and almond is a classic combo.
Is it really?
Yeah, cherry and almond. It's so delightful together. Yeah.
Okay.
And
I'll just have to believe you on that one.
And they're so good. And then she puts a Hershey Kiss in the middle of them.
Oh, nice.
Really
Yeah.
I like all of them. Yeah. I have a little cupcake right now. It's not particularly Christmassy, but I thought it'd be fun to share.
Oh, you're going to share it with me? I could have a bite?
Okay, ready? Amazing.
I can't quite reach. How was it? I didn't really taste it very well.
Oh, okay. Too digital for you?
A little too digital for me. For those of you who are listening, you may or may not know, we do not record in the same location.
Nope.
And this is actually
sure don't.
And this is not a COVID thing. We have always recorded, almost always recorded remotely as long as we've podcasted. Yeah. So just works well.
And now always on this podcast, we also video record it and put it on YouTube.
Yeah.
So right now you can see our Christmas decor and attire if you jump over to YouTube. So that's pretty delightful too.
Yeah,
so.
It is. It is.
Tell us about your Santa hat of the week, because I've heard tell that you have several.
I may have a few. This one is sort of white and red striped, kind of a Cat in the Hat inspired Santa hat. So
nice.
Yeah.
Very fun.
Yeah. But we were talking about baked goods. Why are we talking about baked goods, Cheryl?
Well, so I love to cook a lot. And I also I like to bake a lot too. What I like about cooking more than baking is that they say that cooking is an art and baking is a science.
So guess which one I like better?
Baking.
hands down. Also, I like things that are baked better than things that are
Mm,
cooked.
yeah, that's fair. And
Mhm.
I know that there are certainly like scientific things happening in cooking as well, such as like
Yep.
cooking raw meat or, like there are
Sure.
things like that.
Yep.
Um, but I know that there's more of a scientific reaction and process that happens when you're mixing together flour, eggs, butter, baking soda, baking powder, like salt, all those things. Like there's something that happens to those ingredients. It's delicious. Um, but it matters the amount of yeast you put in or the amount of
Mm,
baking soda you put in. And you're supposed to measure, not just sprinkle it into taste like I like to do with my cooking,
right.
but actually it matters. Like this is the amount to achieve
Mm,
this texture and this fluffiness or whatever it is, the type of cookie you're
yeah.
making. You're achieving different things with different quantities.
Mhm.
Um,
What I think
yeah.
you're asking then is, why do I have to follow the recipe?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
Why?
It's really
Why can't I
annoying.
just make it up as I go along? Why do I have to follow the recipe? Why is it so
Mhm.
important? Why does it make a big difference? Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
Yes, it's really annoying, and we need to get to the bottom of it.
Whereas, of course, for someone like me, I was like, yes, thank you. Just give me the instructions and let me just do the thing. I don't want to figure it out on my own. No, no, tell me the right way and I will do it the right way. Why are
This
we
is a
friends,
key
Cheryl? I don't
difference.
understand.
It's a key difference between you and I.
Okay. Well, let's start with our pre-assessment to figure out what you already know.
Okay.
And you sort of hinted at some of this already, but why do you think the amounts work? And you can either talk in general or you could talk about a specific ingredient if you think there's a specific thing and you know why it matters the amount of that thing.
Hmm. I know like some ingredients, well, there's things like some ingredients add to it being more moist or
Okay.
more fluffy or
Okay.
things like that. But then I also know that like specifically baking powder and baking soda, and I
Hmm.
forget there's some difference between the two of them that they do different things, but um I think it makes it get bigger because I know, like, there are recipes that don't call for either of those, and then you don't have to, like, spread out the cookies so much or things like that because it's
Mm,
not gonna grow in size.
okay.
So I'm thinking it might even, like, leave little pockets of air or
Mm,
something
okay.
like that. Um, but then what else is happening? I mean, eggs are getting cooked, so we like that.
Okay.
Um Flour becomes safe to eat as well when you cook it, so that's a good thing as well. Um, so these things just become safe to eat, but I think it's more like something's happening or like with pie dough, the butter, like, leaves little pockets or, like, that's what the flakiness happens is because of the
Hmm.
way you cut the butter in. So there's,
Okay.
like, very specific sciencey things happening.
All right. Um, and why do you think the amounts of these things matter?
Because if you put in too much flour, it would be so dry because, I was just gonna say because there's too much of it, which is not a great way to explain that, but, like, then, it's not the right balance for something like that. There's not enough moisture, it's too much of the dry ingredient, but if you put in too much eggs, it's just gonna become like flan, pretty much. It's like it's gonna become a different dessert for some of these things if you put too much or too little in. But um, I think like if you put in something that's helping it rise in any capacity, then it might rise too much and then just fall apart.
Okay, good thoughts. Anything else that you can think of related to why we need to follow the recipe, why the amounts of our ingredients matter?
Um, I mean, otherwise you might try to make a sugar cookie and end up with shortbread. So, sometimes that
I,
happens.
I,
That's
I,
probably how they came up with a million different dessert recipes.
sure. And so you're saying if you have the wrong amounts, you'd end up with a totally different type of cookie.
I think, yeah, I mean, that's probably how they all developed.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like we're going to need some cookies here pretty soon.
Yeah, we will.
In order to kind of talk about all these things, there's a ton of cool information, Cheryl. And here's what I think we may need to do, because there's so much information about, because you talked about baking powder and baking soda, and we talked about eggs and about flour, and I don't think you mentioned it, but sugar is a big one. I think we may need to do a whole unit just on baking and how each of these things affects food when we bake.
That sounds fantastic. I would love to.
I thought you might like that. But for now, we're going to deal with sort of the overall big picture question of why do I have to follow the recipe in the first place?
Yeah.
And the answer is it relates to amounts, which you sort of kind of talked about, right? You said, like with the flour, if you have too much flour, then it's too dry and you have to balance it out. And that is more or less the right idea. In chemistry, we've got a specific term for this. And I want to give you a couple of analogies to help you figure it out. But it's called, sometimes you have this thing called a limiting reactant. Have you heard that before?
I've heard that term. Yes.
Okay. So in a chemical reaction, the reactants are the things that you start with, and the products are the things that you get out at the end, that you end with, that you produce. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Analogous, and this is an analogy that gets used a lot in chemistry classes, is that you can think of a recipe. And the reactants are all of your ingredients, and the products are the things you have at the end that you made.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Well, there are certain ones where you have to have them in just the right proportion to get the mixture to work in a way that makes sense and is practical. Here's an example. I'm going to give you two different examples. Example number one. Most regular cars have how many tires?
4.
4. Okay. So let's say that you were making a car and you have all these different parts that you're putting together to make the car. And you have a certain number of tires that you're putting on the car. If you have a multiple of 4, you're good. You can finish your car. But if you end, let's say you've been making them, you get to the end of your amount of tires and you have 6 tires, how many cars can you finish?
1.
But you have 6 tires.
But I don't have enough to make an entire additional car.
Exactly. Even if you had all the rest of the ingredients, those 2 tires can't really do their thing unless they can match up with another 2 tires. Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah.
So that's the thing that's limiting you or preventing you from getting the rest of what you need to make a whole nother car.
Okay.
Another way to think about it is thinking about Lego. I assume that you've built Lego before.
Oh, yeah. A couple days ago.
There you go. And most of the time, when you get to the end, you've got a few little tiny pieces left over, don't you?
Yes, on my friend's Lego set, one of my extra pieces was an additional slice of Joey's pizza.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
But can you build a whole nother friend's set because you still have one extra slice of Joey's pizza?
No, unfortunately, I cannot.
No, you cannot, right? Because you can't do enough because you're missing all the other pieces. You're limited in the amount that you can make because you have to have them in the right proportion to put it all together to make your product. Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah.
That's the same thing that's going on most of the time with baking. Now, it's more complex and there's ins and outs and all of those things, but often if you don't have enough of one thing or you have too much of it, let's say you had too much butter, right? You add twice as much butter as normal. Well, that's great, but all that extra butter can't go to do the things that butter normally does in your cookie. It just ends up melting and like going everywhere because it doesn't actually react with anything else. It can't do what it's supposed to do because there's way too much of it.
Yeah. I've had that
Right?
happen.
Yep, there you go. And you can find something similar for most of the ingredients. If you have too much of them or not enough, then they can't do and make their part of the cookie process all the way in comparison with all of the other amounts. And that's why you can say double a recipe, right? Because you're keeping all of the amounts the same. You're just having twice as many of them. Or you can triple a recipe or whatever, right? Because then you're still keeping the amounts compared to each other exactly the same. So it's going to produce the same result in the end. And it's not wasted or left over that just kind of sits there and doesn't do anything, or if you have too much of something, sometimes they'll burn because they don't change the way they're supposed to. And so then they're just left there and they burn or whatever.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So that's the basic answer to your question. There's more details, of course, if we were to get into each individual ingredient. But I don't know about you. I'm ready for some cookies.
Oh, 100%.
So where are they?
I mean, I'm gonna have to go figure out if I have all the ingredients I need to make an entire cookie.
To make one entire cookie.
Yeah, hopefully more than one.
Hopefully more than one. Okay. But until you go, oh, rude.
This cupcake is delicious.
I'm sure it is. Thanks for sharing with me, Cheryl. Just for that, it's time for your quiz.
Oh man, I shouldn't have done that.
You got to bring enough to share with the whole class.
That is what they say, yes.
That's what they say. Okay, first quiz question. What do you call the ingredients in a chemical reaction?
Reactants.
Yay! Nice job. Question number 2. What do we call the end baked goods in a chemical reaction?
Oh no. Oh no, I'm blanking on it. It's not the reaction.
It's the reactants and the
End result. Gosh, oh no. Compound. It completely left my brain. The product. No, I don't deserve a jingle for that.
Okay, what do I give you instead?
A half a jingle?
How do you do a half jingle?
I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know. Okay. All righty. Let's see if you can redeem yourself here.
Okay. Oh gosh.
What does it mean to have a limiting reactant?
It means that you don't have enough of all of the reactants to do what they need to do to create the product. And so if you don't have all of them, or if there's some left over, then you can't successfully make more of the product. And it won't do its job. It will just like melt or burn or do something stupid.
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
Yeah. Usually and I don't know that we necessarily talked about this. Usually the limiting reactant is the thing that you have that can't react enough. So like with the example with like the tires, like that was the thing that we ran out of, we didn't have enough of. So usually it's like a thing, but it could be multiple things.
Every Lego piece except for that piece of pizza.
Right. Exactly. Okay.
Got it.
This last one's going to be potentially a little bit more challenging.
Oh no.
You may have to take a little bit more time, but you have to be creative to do it.
Oh, well, I like creativity. This is good.
I know you do. Okay. Create your own analogy for a limiting reactant.
But you already used all the good ones.
I used 2 out of the entire universe.
Well, there's baking and Lego. I mean, those are both really good things. Okay, my own analogy. A house. Is
Okay.
that too close to Lego or is that acceptable?
Well, I haven't heard the rest of it yet, so I don't know.
Well, you're going to need some cement for the foundation
Okay.
and probably some windows and walls and
Okay.
floors and roof.
Mhm.
And so if you didn't have a roof, but you had everything else, then the roof would be the limiting reactant and it would not keep the rain out. So then the house wouldn't really work as a house.
Not if the point of the house is to keep you dry and warm.
Yes.
Yeah, that works. That totally works.
Yay!
Okay. Well, I think, Cheryl, you owe me a cupcake or cookies or something.
Yeah, probably.
Probably. So why don't you pack up and get ready for my closing remarks so you can go make those for me.
Okay.
You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at I Slept Through Science or on Twitter at Slept Science.
If you have dumb science questions like I do, please send them to us. You can email us at isleptthroughscience@gmail.com, or you can even send us a voice memo and we'll play it on the podcast.
Please rate and review our podcast to tell other people what you think about it, subscribe to make sure you don't miss an episode, and share about our podcast on social media.
Thank you to Beth Reed Miller for the artwork. You can check out more of Beth's artwork at Beth Is Something. Okay, great. Thanks. Bye.
The bell doesn't dismiss you. I dismiss you.